What's good, everybody? It's Andy. We are here at CrossFit Dallas Central, and I'm super stoked today because we are going to talk about fitness. If you follow me on Insta, you'll realize that fitness is one of my other big passions. And next to me, I have one of the people that I've looked up to for quite some time. This is Spencer Nix, one of the owners. They are one of the OGs of CrossFit in the Dallas area. They opened up their first gym in 2008. So it's been a hot minute. I asked Spence to be a part of this video and help us elaborate on what the deadlift is and how it applies to cycling. Spencer's knowledge on kinesiology is a lot higher than mine. I feel like I got a pretty good foundation, but Spence, he's a walking almanac. So we're gonna let him take the reins and give us the 411 on how to do this, how to do it safely, and apply it to your cycling.
So in the world of strength conditioning, there's no replication for your actual sport. So whether it's on a trail or on the road, nothing can truly replicate what it means to be on a bike. However, there's a point with which you already know how to ride the bike. And at that stage in the game, cross training or doing something to supplement your riding is a really great idea. Now, long ago, we used to think that in the world of sports performance that it had to completely mimic what the movement was. So as a dumb example, in tennis, we'd get in here and we'd, attach a pulley to your wrist and we'd try to mimic like a forehand. Well, we don't really take it to that extreme anymore, but at this point, we do want the movement patterns to be as close to the position and the poses that you'll have in your actual sport. Now, for cycling, there is no better position to mimic than a deadlift. Now, the reason for that is because we have peak tension in the hamstring and your back is static, which is very similar to the sport of cycling. So if there was one movement that we'd have to pick for you to cross-train with, to get stronger with, that would have a great carryover to the actual sport, it would be the deadlift. So this is a really easy checklist for anybody who's never done the deadlift to make sure they're in a safe position, but also like an optimal position to potentially move more weight than they wanted to. Step number one, Andy, is I want you to scoot forward to the bar so your toes would be chopped off by the object that's across it. So that's step one, is just the stance. Now the second thing I want you to do is, without moving the bar, I want you to place your hands outside of it. So just go ahead and grip the bar and I'll get everything else cued. Great. Now from here, I want your shins to kiss the bar without them moving at all. Now without you lifting the bar, I want you to take the slack out of it, which means you're gonna lift your chest and let me see the logo on your t-shirt. Well done. Now our very last step with this checklist is just simply to stand. Great, and return down to the ground. So that setup, you can relax, is pretty foolproof, meaning that if you have the right stance, if you have the right grip, if your shins are straight up and down and you've lifted your chest, it's a pretty safe position to be set up. Now there's lots of variations within the deadlift, but let's talk about the actual execution. So when you're in that position and we're set, what I want you to think about is that you're lifting with both of these parts of your body. So he's in that setup position. Now as he stands, I want him to apply pressure to both of my fingers. Go for it. Great, and then right back down. Stand and relax. Now lastly is how we come back down, because a lot of times we'll have multiple repetitions that we want to do. So the return, or going back down, is just as important as the ascent. So on this next rep, Andy, as you're standing all the way up, I want you to think about all hips, which means as you come down, you're going to turn the volume down on your knees until I tell you to stop, and at that point we'll incorporate those things a little bit more. So we're in our setup, stance, grip, shins, chest, and stand. He lifts with the shoulders and the hips. Now when you return, I'm going to give you just a moment to freeze there. Go ahead and go down all hips. Now freeze right there. Now once you cross the knees, the shoulders and the hips are going to go down together. Go for it. Great job. It looks like you've done this before. Stand and relax. The cue that I like to think about with the descent is it's all hips, but once I cross the knees, it's like I'm sitting down in this little chair that's maybe built for someone a little shorter than myself. Anyways, Hope that's an easy way to break down a movement that a lot of times can intimidate us, but it's a really simple and effective way we found here to teach people to deadlift that have never done it before.
All right, Spencer, you've spent thousands and thousands of hours training people how to do this properly. What are some of the most common faults that you see newbies committing while they're doing a deadlift or trying to do a deadlift?
You know, there's a lot of different ways this can go wrong. If we were to prioritize one, especially for, you know, the community that you're involved with that we'd want to steer away from, it's having the spine move when the object isn't. So if I get you set up in the position to start, we would want to see, and we're going to do this the right way, that as soon as Andy's body moves, the bar moves also. Exactly right. You can come on down and relax. What we don't want to see is that there's portions of your spine that are moving, but the bar hasn't taken off from the ground. You with me on that? So if we get set up in that position, watch really close through his spine. I don't want to see anything move right through there while the bar is still on the ground. Exactly right. So it's easy to do. You can stand and relax if we've never been in this position before, but a really good safeguard against that is that as soon as my body's moving, the object should be as well. Maybe one additional fault is having the bar not move in a straight line. Because if you think about this, we want any object that we lift to be as vertical as possible. That would be the safest and the optimal from a performance standpoint. So what we don't want to see is the bar moving horizontally on the way up or even on the way down.
Yeah.
So let's focus just on the way down. So let's say Andy's done one deadlift. He did it right on the way up. But as he comes down, he closes the wrong joints. And watch where the bar goes if he bends at the knee first. The bar is going to shift slightly forward right there. As he lowers down to the ground, it's going to get out of a position that he can control as well as doing it the right way, which is hips back and the bar moving directly over the middle part of his foot. Now, there's a few other ways that this can go wrong, but I would say those two, having the spine move when it shouldn't and having the bar move out of the place that it should be going, are probably the easiest things to fall prey to.
All right, so we know not everybody has access to barbells or a facility like this, but most of us do have access to some light dumbbells or maybe some heavy objects in the house with a handle on it, and Spencer's going to show us some variations on how to do the deadlift if that's the case for you.
And if it's any consolation, the barbell isn't superior to any other resistance training object. The reason that we like the barbell is because of its ability to load it a little heavier than maybe we would be able to do with dumbbells or kettlebells. But to encourage you from a setup standpoint, it's actually easier to get set up with a kettlebell or a pair of dumbbells. And if we think about any type of natural movement that we would be in, more than likely our hands would be inside of our legs versus outside like we saw with the barbell. So if we talk about just a kettlebell, the way that we want to approach this is really to accommodate our grip and our stance just to meet the object's width. So here Andy's going to have the kettlebell very similar to how he would have the barbell across his toes. So he'll scoot forward until that thing is pretty much just right in line with the arches of his feet. Now his hands are going to be inside of his legs versus outside. Now when the object is shorter, it means I got to lower my hips just a little bit more. So the same thing that we did before, his hips are going to go down and back, and he's going to place his hands on the handle. Now you notice in this setup, his hips are a lot lower than we saw him with the barbell. That's okay. And a big reason is that his arms can get inside of his legs. For his comfort, if he knows that his shoulders are over the object and his shins are approximately vertical or straight up and down, he's in a good setup. Now for him to stand, it's the exact same execution that we talked about moments ago. His shoulders and hips rise together, and to return it, it's also identical. His hips go back, his knees only bend when he crosses them, and he's back to the setup position. Now, we could interchange a kettlebell with any type of object that's just one that both of your hands go to. So that could be a sandbag, could be a small child, maybe some luggage, you know, anything
Bag
at
of
all.
mulch if you're gardening, you know.
For dumbbells, we'll have our hands in a couple of different ways. We could have them inside like we just demonstrated, or we could have our feet outside, or excuse me, our feet inside and our hands outside. So Andy, what I'm gonna have you do is go ahead and stand up with the dumbbells, and we'll kind of reverse engineer this from the top down.
Okay. So just go ahead and
Yeah, so from the standing position, his feet can be approximately under his hip. So of all the setups that we have, this is probably the closest foot position, simply because our hands aren't gonna be in front, they're not gonna be inside, but they're gonna be in the side. We here affectionately call this a suitcase position because it's the position you'd hold a couple of suitcases before they had wheels. Now as we go down, he's gonna try to trace the dumbbells to the sides of his leg. So as his hips go down and back, we've seen already a couple of times, his hands will slide down his shins, and we'll probably stop somewhere around here and then stand and relax. So for the dumbbells, we don't have to make contact with the ground, but oftentimes we get approximately close to where we'd have them and we're good to go. So there's a couple of variations if we don't have access to a bar, but we have something in the form of dumbbells, kettlebells, or like Andy was saying, a bag of mulch.
All right, everybody, I hope you liked some of the insight that Spencer had for us, some really good points on how to do it and how not to do it. Keep yourself safe, keep yourself active. Use this anytime there's rain, the trails are wet, and you're freaking out, you're like, man, I can't go ride. Get in the gym, get some strength and conditioning. It'll make your riding better, less fatigue, you make smarter decisions, less mistakes, much safer rider. All right, see you next time. Thanks, Spence.